Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much for turning up. It's my greatest pleasure and honour to welcome you all to this year's British Islam Conference. I'd like to, before we go any further, thank all of you for making the time to be here, for joining us, for supporting us. It's such a pleasure to have you with us. I'd like to thank our amazing team. Hira's just stepped out. Can you call her in? Yes. Our amazing team, Hira, who's been leading on this program. Hira, come forward, take a clap and take a bow. Hira's been project lead on this event, and she's done an amazing job. Thank you very much, Hira. I asked her to speak at the beginning. She said, "I'm not a speaker," so I just thought it'd be good for her to take a bow. Thank you so much. But we've had the whole team, and we're so lucky with the support of our funders and with the support of everybody who's backing us and helping us in all sorts of ways, not just financially, but we've got an amazing team developing in just a year and a half. We've got a really nice, solid team. Manish has joined us most recently. He'll be looking at our media and comms. We've got 3 of our trustees here. Rabia's there at the back, Nav's there, myself. Akila, who's not able to be here today because she has a family wedding, but she's coming tomorrow. And who else? Samina's around. She's there at the back as well. Evian is there as well, and she's in Norway at the moment doing her PhD, but she's joined us for this event. So it's great to have them working together to help us put this event together. I want to say something about what we're trying to do here, because although this is only our second event, it's creating a splash. It's getting noticed, and people are beginning to talk about it. Last year we had about 96 people. We met in Coventry, and many of you were there last year as well. This year we thought, because of feedback from last year, people wanted it in London. We're expecting about 200 plus people over this weekend. The format is one where people will dip in and out. It's not a linear process where you start and listen to everything, except for this session. Listen to everything and then you sort of go through the whole program. As soon as we split up after lunch, there will be parallel sessions and you're free to dip in and out, listen to as much or as little as you want, not go to any sessions if you don't want to, and just talk to people and network. That's the nature of what we're trying to do here. It's about discussion, it's about debate, it's about you contributing, it's about a marketplace of ideas. Not us telling you what to think, not us telling you what you should believe or what you should hold, but you engaging with ideas, rejecting whatever you want, accepting whatever you want, and then contributing your own ideas. Why are we doing this? Well, I started off with the very famous phrase that Muslims start everything off with, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And when I think of those descriptions of how we look at God, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, and then other names of God like Al-Wadud, the loving, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the merciful, the source of all mercy, I think you would agree that the world needs those values, those ideas, those notions today more than ever before, more than we've ever needed them before. And although those terms come from Muslim sentiments and the words derive out of a Muslim tradition, they are actually a universal set of values and ideas: love, mercy, compassion. And Karen herself is a beacon of, an example of someone who stands for this word compassion. And I'm sure she'll, tell us more about that, if not through her lecture, but when you engage her in discussion and conversation. The world needs this. But it's not just a very soft, wishy-washy love and compassion that I'm talking about. It's more of a Martin Luther King type of love that we're talking about. It's a confident, assertive love that will stand up for the downtrodden, stand up for the people that are weak, that are oppressed, that are in need, that are most in need of that love and that mercy and that compassion. And that's why we're trying to create this as an open space, that's an inclusive space for different Muslim identities. So often we have gatherings of Muslims where one identity or another is just excluded offhand because they're not seen as legitimate, they're not seen as a part of the family. And we want this to be an open, inclusive forum where the whole of the family can sit together and talk together. And we don't see the family as being just Muslim. That's really critical to us, that's really crucial to us. For too long we've had by Muslims, for Muslims conversations, Muslim bubble conversations. We need conversations that are human, that are for people, that draw, of course, confidently draw upon Muslim values and Muslim heritage. That's our starting point. That's where we come from as Muslims ourselves. But values that connect with other people, that can tap into what everyone has to offer to that debate and that discussion. We've seen so much talk of division over the last year since we had our last conference. We've seen Brexit, we've seen the elections in America, we've seen so many other things happen across Europe, across the world. And that populism that we talk about, whether it's in the White House or whether it's in Whitehall or whether it's Muslim leaders, in fact, asserting a type of populism, it's actually not that new. The Muslim leaders' populism it's become quite an established discourse. People pandering to the audience, people giving what they think the audience wants to hear, and feeding the beast. And we've done far too much of that. We've done far too much of constantly feeding a narrative of victimhood, a narrative of how bad things are, a narrative of division, a narrative of how they are out to get us, how we need to stand up against them. This us and them that keeps talking, keeps featuring in our discourse, keeps dividing our communities. I'm not naive. There are divisions, there are real divisions out there, and we've seen some of those divisions become more and more acute, particularly in the last year. But we need to do everything we can to resist that. We need to do everything we can, and that's why people like us, who are sitting in this room, can stand together despite those divisions, reach out across those divides more crucially. And I think we also need to take ownership in framing the conversation in a positive, on a positive basis. It's not enough to just argue and put forward an identity that is based on what we're against. Sometimes we have to do that. History takes us down those directions. But actually we are at our most powerful when we can articulate a vision of what we are for, what we want to achieve, what we would like society to look like, what we would like our identities to be, in a more inclusive and positive frame. We need to take ownership of that and start to frame the debate and conversation. And we need to resist being defined by our pain and our anger and our victimhood. Those things are there. Pain is there, of course, it's a fact of life. We see injustice around us all the time. But we need to resist being defined by that pain. And unfortunately, we see people in all parts of our society, Muslim as well as outside of Muslim communities, almost fuel that, peddle that, because it fits their agenda, because it wins them more people on their Facebook likes or their Twitter feed or whatever it is. And that's the sort of pandering that I was referring to earlier. We need to resist that. We need to stop that and move away from that. And this idea where you'll see in some of our banners, where we talk about looking ahead, but we talk about it in the context of looking back, looking ahead. And this notion of looking back, looking ahead is so important to us as an organization, because we have to recognize that we come from a tradition. We come from somewhere, we come from a point, and we bring with us a certain set of values. But we want those values to be forward-looking, to look towards something aspirational and ambitious. And once we start looking at that sentiment and peeling it away, you'll see layers and layers of depths of meaning, actually. But what we're trying to connect to is a human heritage where people throughout history have felt that they need to be aspirational and think together of a common future, of a common humanity. And it's, my final point, is that it's that common humanity and that common thread of our living together that's the critical thing. When we think about religion, when we think about Islam, when we think about even notions of God, God for us is not an old man in the sky. God for us is something that is in our heartbeats. God for us is felt in our existence. God doesn't exist apart from us, but is a part of our existence. And that's the way in which we think about and talk about God. And that's the way in which we want to think about God as being the thing that is in our heartbeat, that is manifest in the drumbeat of humanity. And I think if we are able to step back a little bit and reconceptualize some of the ways in which we talk about these issues, we can take with us a religious tradition, think about it and manifest it in a way that is new, in a way that is deeply authentic, passionate about its heritage and its history, but at the same time open, tolerant, inclusive, and forward-looking. And that's, I think, the ingredient that we need for us to rebuild those divides and divisions in our society. Thank you very much indeed.